Hello, everybody. This is Brendan Kenny, lawyer in Minneapolis. I am going to be driving, but I am reasonably confident I'm safe. I have a Bluetooth on. I'm going to be in traffic. I've got this thing stationary. So you might want to close your eyes or something if there's too much shaking. But thanks for tuning in. Right now, what I'm talking about on my drive home from work is Reddit, the Adnan Syed case, and Persuasion. I had been on Reddit a little bit back when the Serial podcast first started, just because, like many of you, I think, I was desperate for more information about the case. And I found Reddit to be a pretty interesting place where you could hear a lot of different theories. And my sense at the time was that the tendency of the Reddit was probably, the Serial Reddit was probably trending a little bit pro-guilt, but there was a lot on all sides, and my sense is that that's changed a little bit for the Serial podcast Reddit. And I do want to apologize for, in my last Periscope, saying that Reddit had become toxic for Serial podcast. It was loose talk for me. It's not the kind of word I usually use. I think it's vague and it's unfair and untrue. What I meant is the Serial podcast subreddit had become not a very helpful place, as I saw. So I think there's a lot of great stuff on Reddit, and I have been invited to and part of some private stuff. I'm not going to get into anything that's in there, of course, but just some of the general things about Reddit. I was going to talk about the 3 really good things about Reddit and 3 not so good things about Reddit. As lawyers, as not just lawyers, as storytellers, we're taught the rule of 3, that whenever you want to make an argument, you give 3 reasons. It just seems to work really well. I do have 3 reasons, but I don't think it makes sense to really put them in good category, bad category. I think they're both. So one, what's great about Reddit is it is a place that you can delve very deep into the weeds about ideas in the case. And because of anonymity and because of some of the privacy that is in effect for some of these groups, people feel free to really go out there, all out with their ideas and do a lot of very interesting research. And I don't say research in quotes, really legitimate research, and found some very important things that changed, well, I don't know that they changed my views on anything, but at least let me feel like I was thinking some of the same things that other people were thinking. And so really the ability to crowdsource is maybe at its best in Reddit, because there's so many minds out there that you can kind of pool resources with and do things with. The thing I'd say that makes Reddit so great for diving down into the weeds also has a shortcoming. And maybe it's just me and I'm new to Reddit, but I try to be a trial lawyer. I try to think about things those ways and think at the case some level from 10,000 feet and come up with case themes and see how that would apply to different issues. And I found for myself, my head was hurting. I was getting a headache trying to do that, just how detailed it was, and also based on the format of Reddit. It's very hard to kind of get above it and have kind of an outline. It's all very specific things. I'm not explaining myself very well, but that's what I found. And I think that might be why sometimes on both sides there hasn't been an overall narrative that's come out in this case, a counter narrative that explains everything. There is the counter narrative, the important one, of the rush to judgment from the defense side, which is true, but we still don't seem to have a really good, I think, persuasive, compelling counter-narrative of how things really went down with the investigation and the prosecution, and also how things really went down with Jay. One of the things that I think is good about Reddit, the way it's set up, is it does provide a home base, I'd say, for people to be with like-minded people and take their ideas and run with them. The feeling I got was when I was a kid, I remember both seeing TV and movies. One was the series Tour of Duty. and also from what my dad told me, because he was in Vietnam in 1967 and 1968, about the tunnels that the Viet Cong would have out in the jungles. These incredible tunnels that would go far, far, far all over the place. You had no idea where they went. They lived down there. They had hospitals, all sorts of things. And they would have people called tunnel rats, who would be the people who would go down and try to blow them up or find out where they ended and everything. And I feel like Reddit is that way. There are all these tunnels that go down deep, and you can't really get to all them. Or maybe like some of the tunnels that the dwarves had in Lord of the Rings, where they would be searching for gold, and there would be all sorts of things down there that you didn't know about, and every so often they'd come forth a dragon or something like that. And that's maybe one of the frustrations of Reddit. One of my pet obsessions is how difficult it is to convince anybody of anything. That's so much, as the saying goes, well, I don't think it's a saying, I think it's something St. Thomas Aquinas said, that I'm paraphrasing, the persuasiveness of the speaker is correlated with the openness of the hearer. And so many people are set in their ideas, and the structure of Reddit makes it that counter ideas have to go through so many filters that they don't really reach people in a pure form. They've already gone through a bunch of filters who've said, what these ideas mean. And the prime example, and again, I'm not speaking out of school because this even made it to Twitter. The prime example is this whole argument about the missing transcripts that supposedly Robbie on the undisclosed team held back, which just cracks me up because I was so happy to see these transcripts. And I looked through them, and people say, they're innocuous or not, don't really have anything that hurts the defense. There's a lot of really interesting things in these transcripts that explain a ton to me. Remember Jay, and maybe people saw this somewhere else, Jay Wilde's attorney, Ben Royo, and I might be mispronouncing her name. There's a part where she's talking to the judge, and she starts talking to the judge, and the judge says, we need to have both these, the prosecution and the defense around when you're talking to me. And the Jay Wilde's attorney was talking about how much time she spent on the case, and it just struck me, the one thing that I haven't looked at, and I haven't heard anyone else looked at, and if you have, well, great, I'd like to hear about it. You can tweet at me at KENNYBRENDAN at Kenny Brendan. And I don't even know if tweeting at someone's a thing. That sounds like something that people would have said in 2006 on Twitter, when people's status was still whatever your title was, and then you started the sentence and then you said something. Do you remember that? Anyway, long time ago. Well, was Twitter around 2006? In any event, I thought of that. I was like, what is this lawyer doing? I know she set up this plea deal that was exceedingly odd, that didn't have anything where Jay understood his Fifth Amendment rights, but was she preparing him for trial? And okay, this is something I think we, maybe just coming as a lawyer, maybe other people aren't thinking about this, but when I see some of the stuff the prosecution did, beyond the obvious discovery problems, the report that was done orally, essentially, all the other things that were holding back, that they held back on who the defense witness was, that it was Jay. I think so much of this stuff was insulating communications from disclosure through sort of privileges or through various means that they could keep from turning it over. And whether or not some of these decisions started that way, I think that's what they become used for. So the thing I'm very interested in, and some of this was sparked by Reddit, and some of this was just my own interest, is this consulting group, as we know, that was involved at the very early stages in the missing persons case of Heyman Lee, who we don't know really who got them involved or how they got involved exactly. I've heard a number of theories, and I'm not sure what I think, but this group got involved, and they were it always struck me as very odd that they were talking to Don, and I wonder who else they were interviewing. They They presumably could be conducting interviews, writing the stuff down for themselves, and communicating it to